Coming to you live from Chatterbox Studios in downtown Memphis, it's Stephen Kirkpatrick with Executive Speakers on Speakers. I've got former Amazon executive and author John Rossman on the show with me today. We're going to talk about his new book on Internet of Things. We're going to find out what it is, why it matters to you, and why men's water polo is the next sensation that's sweeping the nation. It's almost Christmas time, so pull out your ugly Christmas sweaters, come up to the table, and stick with us because you might learn something. We're very lucky to have with us John Rossman, former Amazon executive, author, and expert on digital disruption. John is currently managing director with Alvarez & Marcel in Seattle. They specialize in technology strategy, multi-channel operations, scaling, and platform enablement in multiple industries, including retail, service, and public sector. John is also an exclusive at Executive Speakers Bureau, and we're very happy to have him today. John, how are you?
Great. Thank you for welcoming me.
No problem at all. How was, let's start off really quick. How was Thanksgiving with the family?
Thanksgiving was great. We're actually down in Southern California now. It was our first Thanksgiving in Southern Cal and really enjoyed it. Everybody got home.
Well, that's a good thing. I'm sure the weather was a lot better down there than what you've been used to up in the Pacific Northwest.
Well, surprisingly, Sunday was a stormy day, and so it was great for just watching football.
Oh, well, that is good. Like I said, it never storms in Southern California, at least it's not supposed to. So that's good. So, John, you just recently wrote another book. It's called The Amazon Way on IoT, 10 Principles for Every Leader from the World's Leading Internet of Things Strategies. So talk to me about this. I know I have a lot of people out there who are trying to wonder and figure out what Internet of Things means and why it's important to them. So what is this IoT thing?
So IoT, you can think about it on kind of multiple levels, but at its, kind of plumbing or low level, IoT is the technologies and capabilities of putting sensors on the physical and everyday devices, being able to collect data and events, and then being able to process those and gain insights from the data and events that are going on in kind of everyday objects. And these can be consumer objects and items or industrial products and industrial situations across the board. But at a more business level, IoT is about creating greater awareness and greater connectivity with your customers and with your extended enterprise. And it's the opportunity to drive both operational improvements, to improve customer connectivity, and to develop new business and service models from this core capability.
Interesting. So is this just something that's going to apply to businesses, you think, or is this something that's going to have societal impacts just on every single person?
Well, I think time will tell, but I think in a lot of ways, we're already seeing some of the society impact, both the great things as well as some of the implications of it, right? And so when you think of, the video surveillance that is now propagating across the country, there's both, great upsides to that, but it also raises a lot of questions about, privacy and everything. And so I think like most great technologies, there's extremely valuable and productive and impactful side, but it also will, force change, and there's a downside. Bad guys will use it in nefarious ways, but those issues are going to be tackled, and and I think that's why the word disruption is appropriate, because the change isn't always easy. It's not always fun. It can impact jobs. It can impact skills. But it is going to happen, and we'll figure it out, along the way.
So what kind of inspired you to write this book? What were you seeing in the consulting world or through your speeches? Why did you decide that this book needed to be written?
Yeah, a few things kind of struck me and inspired me to write it. The first was that I had a couple of clients where I was working with them on developing their IoT strategy and plan. And what I found was that, a lot was being written about some really interesting IoT use cases. There's a lot of big projections being written about, the number of devices and the impact. And there's a lot being written about the technology components underlying it. But I didn't find anything that would, in a simple way, help a business person understand how could IoT impact my business and how do I go about evaluating those and building my own IoT strategy and plan. And so this book is intended for the business people who are asking that simple question, which is, how can IoT impact my business?
Very good. So why Amazon? Why relate this to Amazon? What's so important about Amazon, and why do they need to be talked about when it comes to IoT?
Yeah. So as I started to unravel and build that story of, what are the strategies for how IoT can impact a business, and how do I help a business person build their own IoT plan, all the examples and all the roads kept coming back to, that Amazon was a great exemplar and demonstrator and leader in that particular idea. And there's a few other companies that the book probably could have been written to also, but, I'm authentic and know Amazon. And so the ability to give real use cases and simple tactical example stories and recommendations through the lens of Amazon, but also other great companies through the book, that was just kind of a natural fit and kind of why I should tell that story.
You had mentioned practical strategies, and I think one of the cool things is if you look at this book, which is available on Amazon, by the way, kind of funny, but you can also get it on our website, www.executivespeakers.com, have a link to that. There is a checklist at the end of the book, as well as kind of a blueprint for building an IoT strategy for businesses, which I thought was really cool, and I read through it. What's kind of your hope for this, John, at the end of the book? And also, too, how did you develop this business plan, this model, this checklist for businesses and IoT?
Yeah, and my hope is that people put it to action, and everything, right? And that it makes an impact. And what I try to do, in my consulting work, with my books, in my speaking, is to give practical tools and techniques that people can put to work today, and everything to make a difference. And so making complex things simple and putting, simple steps together is actually, what I found to be the art of helping to make change in organizations and with the people that I'm advising. There's already too much complexity in their life and in their business and in their world. And when you can, make it real simple and as straightforward as possible, that's a big part of where the value is delivered. So again, my goal was to just not just explain the concepts, but to give some real tactical questions for you to ask and steps for you to take to help build your own vision of how the Internet of Things can impact your business and how you should approach it.
That's good. I want to go and talk about one of the chapters that really stood out to me, relentless.com. Now, for some people that may not know, Jeff, who founded Amazon, originally named it relentless.com. And obviously still, and this may be wrong, but if you type in relentless.com, it'll take you to Amazon. Now, one of the things that people always want to know about Amazon is the culture that is created basically from the top down. So talk to me about this chapter and about the culture at Amazon of disruption innovation.
Yeah, so the concept in the book is, I kind of explain that the Internet of Things can be used to improve customer experiences, to drive operational improvements and drive business models. And when you're thinking about operational improvement, process improvement, doing things cheaper, better, faster, Amazon is just relentless about that. Nothing is ever done. Nothing is ever finished. There's always a degree of scale or efficiency or error reduction that can be improved upon. And I think that's one of the real magic aspects of their culture is never being satisfied with where things are at. And so I think that relentless.com is both, ironically, was the initial name for Amazon, But more importantly, it's just the culture internally, which is, we are never done improving our business. And IoT can be a key tool set or capability in helping you find that next layer of operational effectiveness within your organization.
Interesting. So let's talk about your speaking a little bit. I know that you have you go across many, I guess, corporate and foundation lines. You're talking to Coke bottlers in Mexico, Governance Institute in Florida, excuse me, about healthcare, talking about disruption, talking about how Amazon can help their companies, and then kind of coming back to this whole concept of it coming down to culture and leadership. And obviously, I want to hit on your first book too, The Amazon Way on Leadership. And you talk about scaling. So what is your goal whenever you talk to these audiences over many different spectrums?
Yeah. So, the discussion isn't about Amazon. It's about what other leaders and companies can learn from Amazon and apply into their own organizations to, drive operational effectiveness, to drive innovation, to drive customer obsession, and to, act like a disruptor, might act. And most companies are, struggling with, how do we change the tone and tempo and, kind of cherish the past a little bit less and, try to be more, go on the offense as far as, creating the future, or somebody else will do it for us. And so, through the example of Amazon and other leading companies, I think just delivering some really simple, management techniques, philosophies, tools, and techniques so that, you can both get the big picture of, how a disruptor thinks, as well as some tactics that you can apply into your business immediately to create a different tone and tempo in it.
Yeah, that's good. I think the practical takeaways is something that people are always looking for whenever they bring in a speaker. They want something they can really go and apply to their business today or apply to their life today. So I think that's something that's very important for speakers. So, John, did you see this second book kind of as a natural progression from your first book, or how did this concept? I mean, what do you see as the connection between your two books?
Well, the connection kind of came after the inspiration that, there was a need to help business people understand how to apply IoT into their business. And then, honestly, I started to develop the book, and every example kept coming back to Amazon. And I didn't necessarily want to, make it another Amazon Way book, but it was just like, that's the story that I can tell in an authentic, crisp, sometimes funny way. And so it wasn't the plan, but it just was the right story to tell. And I try to make, both my books and my speaking, you got to balance both, the business kind of practicality of it, but you got to make it a good story too. And you got to make it entertaining. And that's the stuff that people will remember. And so, that's just the way that I can kind of personalize it and really make kind of the sticking impact that I think lacks in a lot of business books and a lot of business speaking.
Mm-hmm. You said something earlier, and you talked about in your first book, about Amazon being obsessed with the customer. And I think that's such a great term, and really kind of puts it in a perspective about how much importance Amazon puts on customer satisfaction and customer service. How have you seen that impact other companies, just as far as what they need to do and how people interact with Amazon, whether it be through Amazon Prime or next day shipping? How have you seen that play out over other retail markets and digital markets and things like that?
Yeah. So the first leadership principle of Amazon, there's 14, is customer obsession. And what people don't understand is it sounds like a nuance of words, but it actually is a mile of difference between being customer focused or knowing your customer versus being obsessed with them, right? when you're dealing with somebody that's obsessed about something, right? Whether it's, football or, politics or whatever it is, it's like they're hard to understand, right? You're kind of left going, this person's a little crazy and I don't completely understand it. And it's a little bit irrational. And that's what Amazon means by being customer obsessed, is like, we will use that obsession to not just drive satisfaction, but we will use that as the cornerstone to drive innovation. Because when you're obsessed about something, you're willing to do really hard, really unnatural, and really make long-term investments in order to achieve that customer objective that you're looking for. So, in working with my clients and kind of in my speaking, it's helping them understand, like, I'm just not playing a little word game here when I use that word obsession. I mean, like, a fundamental change in belief systems and the hard things that you are willing to do in order to create a better customer experience, and one that's surprising and delightful, and vastly different than what they've experienced before. And again, it kind of sounds like a word nuance, but it's not. It's like it's a big difference when you are truly becoming customer obsessed. And I've got a few tools and approaches that you can start with to get down that path. But again, it kind of starts with tone and tempo from the top and leadership. And that's why, eventually this all comes back to leadership. And it's not easy. It's difficult to predict when you're going to have success or what will be successful. And you gotta be willing to drive change. You gotta let go of some customs and traditions and manners of doing business that have maybe been successful, but those are probably the things that will hold you back in innovating going forward.
One of the things you talk about in innovation is the willingness to take risks. And obviously, a lot of times, whenever we take risks or do something new in business, there's potential for failure. And a lot of times, failure happens. Does Amazon deal with failure or view failure different than most companies that you feel like is a healthy thing or that allows them to keep that culture of innovation?
Yes, dramatically. So the first thing I do is recommend read this year's Amazon shareholder letter. Bezos in it talks about, like, one of his opening sentences is, Amazon's the world's best company to fail at. And he goes on to talk about that very essence, that if you want to innovate, you have to understand the other side of the coin is failing. And when you are making bets, the vast majority of bets don't work out. And what most leaders and most companies don't understand is they want to talk about innovating and making bets, but they don't want to deal with, in a productive way, with the flip side of that coin, which is failure. And so what they end up doing is they start de-risking things, making them very incremental. Well, those are investments. Those aren't bets. And those at times can be very important, like when you're trying to scale something up. Like, yeah, this should work. This is an investment. But you have to understand that difference between making a bet versus making an investment. And so the key when you want to get kind of into the innovation game and making bets is you got to make those bets so that you can afford to lose on them, right? You can't make bets if they're enterprise in nature and have them fail. So you have to develop different approaches and mentalities on, like, how do we create small, agile, bite-sized portfolios of different bets to try. And only when we really have proven out our hypotheses for these things do we start increasing the investment level on them, right? We start scaling them to the next level. And those are the types of governance issues and investment approaches that most companies and most leaders don't really understand, and where companies like Amazon are very, very different.
So talk to me about, I know it's a question everyone wants to ask, drone delivery service. And obviously this is something too, we talk about innovation, talk about bets, and talk about something that could really just change everything. Kind of putting on your hat, I mean, I guess your future goggles, where do you see this going? How do you see this working? Do you think it's something that can be successful in all markets or just some markets?
Well, the way I view drone delivery is Amazon has always been pushing the envelope of faster, cheaper, more predictable order delivery, order fulfillment. And they are trying lots of things in order to create options and make delivery faster and cheaper and more available so that the immediacy is there. Drones are just, another articulation of that long-term value and investment that Amazon is making, but just one of them. And like we were just talking about bets, they're making a bet on this. They'll scale it when it makes sense to scale, when both the technology and the operational suitability is ready, as well as all the policy matters have been worked out. But I think it kind of went from being kind of a joke to being reality pretty quickly. It was just a couple of years ago that Bezos, I think it was in a Charlie Rose interview, announced drones, and it was largely viewed as kind of a gimmick. But I mean, it's real, and who knows, when and at what scale. But I think that's an example of Amazon and other companies, really trying to obsess about the customer, understand how they're going to innovate, and being willing to do hard things in order to create that experience. And they understand the very nature of innovation, which is there's going to be a lot of trial and error kind of through that if you're truly innovating.
That's great. Just a reminder, I'm talking with John Rossman, former Amazon executive and author, talking about his new book, The Amazon Way on IoT, 10 Principles for Every Leader from the World's Leading Internet of Things Strategies. So, John, I got to change gears with you. You recently celebrated a water polo championship in your house, didn't you?
Yeah. So one of my sons plays high school water polo, and they had the opportunity to play in the California Southern High School Championship and won the Division II championship.
That's awesome. That's really exciting. Now, most people probably don't realize this that are listening to this, but water polo in Southern California is really big, and they've got a really, really good team. And most of the U.S. national team comes from Southern California, so that's a pretty big accomplishment. So that's congratulations to your son on that. So anyways, with that being said, it is time for everyone's favorite segment on our program, 3 Random Questions, where we get to ask our guests 3 random questions. So, John, we're going to talk about 3 random questions according to men's water polo, if you're ready for this.
Okay.
All right, so what I'm going to do, I've got 3 questions about water polo, and we're going to see if you can go 3 for 3. My last guest went 3 for 3, so we'll see if we can do it. First question, which country has the most gold medals in men's water polo in the Olympics? Is it A, Russia, B, Great Britain, or C, Hungary?
I would guess C, Hungary.
Oh, wow. Very good. Yes, Hungary is the correct answer. They have 9. Coincidentally,
if you had put Serbia in there, I actually would have guessed Serbia. So I'm glad you didn't put Serbia in the list.
Yeah, it's funny because Serbia won it. I think Serbia is second place with gold medals, but Hungary is number 1 with 9. Okay. Next question. Where was the game of water polo founded? Is it A, Scotland, B, Italy, or C, Australia?
B, Italy.
Actually, that is incorrect. It's A, Scotland. A guy named
Really?
William Wilson founded the game. It was 1885. It was the rules were formalized. Started right outside of Aberdeen, Scotland. He described it as a mix between rugby and he said it was rugby in the water, and that's how it got started. So there you go.
I think that's a fair description.
Yeah, it is. All right, last one. We're going to bring a little bit closer to home. What year did the USA win its first Olympic medal in men's water polo? Is it A, 1936, B, 1924, or C, 1956?
I'm going as late as possible on that one. I would say 56.
Actually, you're incorrect. We won the bronze in 1924. I was kind of surprised by that too. Obviously, that's That's pretty good to win a bronze in 1924. So I was excited about that. So, John, listen, thanks so much for playing 3 random questions. That'll give you some stuff to talk about at the dinner table tonight with your son to see if he knows those answers as well too. Anyways, John, thanks so much for the time on the program. Thank you so much for all you do on the speaker circuit for us as well. Just a reminder for those out there, you can find out more about John on our website, www.executivespeakers.com/John Rossman. You can find bio, speech topics, as well as video, and links to buy his book, his first book, The Amazon Way on Leadership, and his newest book, The Amazon Way on IoT, also sold on Amazon. John, thank you so much for your time, and we'll look forward to talking to you again soon.
Right on. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening today, and thanks to our guest, John Rossman, for coming on and being with us. As always, to find out more about John Rossman, go to our website, www.executivespeakers.com/John Rossman. That's JOHNROSSMAN. You can find out speech topics, bio, and get video of John and some of his past speaking performances, as well as a link to his book, The Amazon Way on IoT, 10 Principles for Every Leader from the World's Leading Internet of Things Strategies. Thanks so much for producer Bob, Chatterbox Studios, and Ryan Sheeler for providing our music. We'll look forward to seeing you next time and hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.